Welcome back to the channel, everyone. And I'm really looking forward to getting into this discussion because a moment of brilliance wins Celtic the 3 points at IBROX. So, going further into that, I want to kind of go into a bit about what we were talking last week leading up to the game. We spoke about different things going on with Celtic and Rangers, how important a game it was in terms of who had the momentum going in for the season. Now, one of the topics we discussed was Callum McGregor and how he has had, a relatively poor start to the season given the standards that he's set over the last few years. But I think that, these are the games that matter. IBROX, 50,000 fans, wanting to terrify you and scare your team and get the, as they call, that lion's den that has no lions, as Steven Gerrard likes to say. And I think that's when you need your captain to really stand up and really show his quality. And I think that he did that in abundance for us. On the ball, off the ball, his leadership qualities showed through, and he dominated the midfield in the first half. But speaking of that, one of the main reasons that I believe that happened was due to the fact that we seem to have reverted back to how we played last season, in the sense that from what I've seen from Rodgers' team so far, he seems to want his centre-halves to carry the ball from inside our own half and, as far to maybe to the halfway line even, kind of thing, and then play from there. Whereas what we noticed at the weekend there, I feel like, was we were getting under Ange last season, the centre-halves didn't really have much of a part to play on with the ball, which is why somebody like Starfelt, I felt like, was really effective in that system, because Ange wasn't interested in the centre-halves carrying the ball. He wanted the centre-halves to get the ball and get it right into the midfield as soon as possible and start the attack. He wanted his midfielders to be the ones that dictated the play. And I think Rodgers' style is he prefers the centre-halves to really push up there, have a ball-playing centre-half. But to his credit, we didn't really have that at the weekend. You got Liam Scales and Laga Belka, who are two, they're not necessarily known for their quality on the ball. So I think it was really smart the way that we've reverted back to that, and we were always fizzing the ball into McGregor quickly. He played deeper while O'Reilly and Turnbull played higher, and I feel like what we've kind of done up until this point this season is played with a two, because maybe like Turnbull or O'Reilly, more O'Reilly drops deeper, and you have Turnbull playing that wee bit higher type of a thing, which is kind of what Rodgers likes to do. He likes to play with a 2 and a 1, whereas last season we had kind of McGregor playing that holding role, create the space, and then having like O'Reilly and guys like O'Reilly and Turnbull making those forward runs, and allowing McGregor to dictate the play with his passing ability. And I think that Rodgers did really well in identifying that as a way that we could get forward and up the pitch. And McGregor it just seemed to me like he switched back to his old self from last season and dictated the whole first half. What are your thoughts on that, Paul?
I think you've summed it up pretty well. I think the in the first half, Rangers didn't do themselves any favours by basically allowing Callum McGregor so much time and space on the ball. They look like Beale has asked the front three to press high, but I think like the term you need to attack as a team and defend as a team comes into this, because if your front three are going to press high, you need your midfield. I mean, how many did they have in the midfield? 3 in the midfield as well. You need that midfield 3 to push up to support them, and then you need the centre backs and the full backs, or the whatever term we want to put on the left and the right back, to push up high as well. But what seemed to happen in that first half was there was just this mass gap in front of the centre halves, but behind their attacking three, who were clearly trying to push our back four as high as possible. So as soon as we bypassed that initial press, Callum McGregor had 3-4 seconds to turn, get himself swiveled round, and then bring guys like O'Reilly, Abada at one point. He was really like spraying passes about. So I think Rangers kind of in that first half played into Celtic's hands, I don't know why they did that. I don't know if it's been a case of we like you hear people say stuff like, we don't set up any different depending on who the opposition is. We'll just play our game. And you're kind of like, you're missing a trick there, because if you've got a player like Cal McGregor, who was like our quarterback on Sunday, and you're going to give him that amount of space in the middle of the park, you are going to create problems for yourself.
Exactly. And see, for me, you can talk about tactics and things like that, but the players on the pitch need to take some responsibility for that. Like, if you're playing a game of football and you're seeing a guy dictate the midfield, one of the Rangers midfield players, whether it be Raskin or Campbell or somebody, needs to take responsibility for that and make and change it. Like, the managers can say there's tactics and things like that, but there's no way that Bill's team talk, he was like, I want to see you to just sit off the midfield. There's no way that he said that. So for me, like, the press, what you've seen, I think, is you've seen that they're entirely from midfield to front a totally new team, and they didn't, and everything just looked just disjointed in a way. Like, it just seemed like they weren't really playing as a team together in that press, and that for me was one of the key differences. You talk about the key men on each team. McGregor dictated everything that we did that was good at the weekend there. And then, one of the things that we were talking about before this is I actually think that because throughout this early part of the season we've played with that 2 deep and 1 high and had the full bit, had the centre halves push forward, I really think that Bill's thought process on that was the fact that we would do the same thing. So he thought that if we have our attacking 3, Rangers attacking 3, press Celtic centre backs, then that's going to stop their style of play, because they're going to have McGregor and maybe like O'Reilly with McGregor playing that deep role, and we can keep them all in the same area with those attacking 3, and then be able to have our overloads in the midfield type of thing. Because based on how we've played so far this season, that strategy would work. But the thing is, I think Rodgers did, this is what I'm saying, I think Rodgers did really well in identifying the fact that that was their game plan. And saying to McGregor, I want you to just forget about kind of attacking, and you just drop into that pocket and
protect the centre halves, and if when we're on the ball, dictate the play.
Exactly. And I think a big part of the reason why he might have done that was because of the centre halves that we were playing. Like, they are not, that is probably our last, in terms of, if you had 2 centre halves to pick, the last, centre half pairing that we were going to pick is Liam Scales and Lagerbielke.
I agree. I made a horrific attempt to try to say Lagerbielke's name last week. I think it was even worse than Neil Lennon's on Sunday. Don't know if you caught that.
I'm quite proud of myself so far, to be honest.
You've been able to, your Polish is absolutely stunning. Is he Swedish? Did I get is that the other guy that's Polish? Like, I heard Hugh Keevans say something on Clyde Super Scoreboard, or a clip of Clyde Super Scoreboard. They said that Liam Scales and Lagerbielke wouldn't be the starting centre halves for a testimonial game. So, I mean, I would say, one, I find that really disrespectful for 2 guys that play for Celtic. See, at the end of the day, like, they guys play for Celtic. They're there on merit. They're there on some form of merit. We've bought them. Scales has went out on loan and done pretty well at Aberdeen. Lagerbielke's a new guy that's coming in outside the first 20 minutes, half an hour. I thought the 2 of them were solid, especially in that second half. So see, for Hugh Keevans to come away with stuff like that, I just think it's just headline pish. You know what I mean? And like, these guys are professionals. They're at Celtic. Like, show a bit of respect in that regard. But the back 4 that, the centre half pairing that we started with, and the back 4 that we ended up finishing the game with, it's not ideal. That's not what we want to see. Get like 3 big injuries at centre half. Probably those 2 guys wouldn't get into the team. I understand what people are saying, but I just feel like the level of, look, Rangers should be scoring against that centre half pairing. Like, you need to earn goals. You don't just get goals because you're playing against 2 centre halves that are shite. Like, we started a game against Barcelona with Charlie Mulgrew and Effie Ambrose at centre half. So see that, like, that Rangers team should be scoring. Why should they be scoring? I think this is part of the problem that Rangers had. This was the attitude. They've seen I seen the lineup and went, oh my God. And I think all of their fans seen the lineup and went, yes, and started rubbing their hands together. But you need to go out onto that field and earn any win. We got taught a good lesson of that at Kilmarnock a couple of weeks ago. And I just don't feel like they did enough. Do you want to talk about the foul? Will we talk about VAR and will we go into that before we talk about like the goal and the chances?
Yeah.
And...
Well, let me before we get, because the VAR thing is something that I'm sure we're going to get into because there's a lot of things about that. But just on the point of what you're saying about the kind of sort of disrespectful way that people are talking about it, it's okay for the fans to think that we're supporters. And you know, Ange, actually, I know I mentioned him a lot in this, but he summed that kind of thing up brilliantly. Where he's like, let the fans dream about things. They can talk about it. I want them to be excited about it. But me and the players, we need to be focused. Ange always said stuff like that, you know, throughout his time at Celtic. And I feel like the problem was for Rangers that it felt as if the players believed it too. The players are looking at that lineup thinking, we've got this, man. And you don't got it. You don't got it if you're not going to put the work in. And not only were Celtic better on the ball, but we worked harder than them. That is the main, you know, like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who the better team is if one team's working harder than the other.
Agreed. Big time.
And see, just before I forget, because the VAR thing, there's so many natural thoughts I have about that we get into, right? But before I forget about this, I think that, you know, on the point of skills, actually, the guy had the game of his career. The guy had, in terms of, you're away at IBROX, you get no set of fans there, nobody's expecting you. You're not even a natural centre-half in a lot of ways, you just played more as a fullback. And I think that he did so well that I would go as far to say that he shouldn't be dropped. See regardless of who's back, when we come back, I feel like he's got to play.
I think so too. I think if you have a guy who's third, fourth, fifth centre half pick, you have an injury list of players that are naturally in front of him in the pecking order, and the guy goes in, and I didn't see him put a foot wrong. I don't remember. I mean, I know that there was nervy moments in the first 15-20 minutes for Scales, and then we'll go on to the VAR incident with Lager Bielka, but I don't remember Scales doing very much wrong. Maybe a misplaced pass here or there at the start, again nerves, but once the nerves settled, they realised that they weren't in a game against fucking Real Madrid. I think that you are spot on. I think the guy had a great game, and I think that for the next few weeks I would feel very comfortable with seeing his name in the starting 11. I think he's earned a place, like you're saying. Whoever comes back, I would say surely it's got to be him and Carter Vickers, like if he keeps the form up. But whoever else is trying to push for the places is going to need to take the jersey off. Scales, I don't think anybody's going to come back and just walk into that team. Well, I would be disappointed if that happened, really.
Well, I mean, you got to think on paper for our season, our hardest game in a domestic season is away at IBROX. You know what I mean? And he came in, kept a clean sheet, and we won the game 1-0. How can you can't, if you're going to drop a guy after that, what's the point of even having, like, you're going to be like, if I can't get a game after that, what's the point of being here? Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to show the players that you've bought in that if regardless of who you are or what your reputation is, if you go in and play that well, you don't get dropped. I think that's a good sort of standard to set up. Like, it's you play based on performance, not on reputation, and that, you know, I think that's a good opportunity to do that with Scales. There was one point I wanted to make about when we were talking about the whole McGregor thing right before we get into the VAR, like, because like I say, that to me is going to be a very fun topic on this, right? But in terms of the whole, what we were saying about McGregor and how Rangers didn't press him and things like that, for me, that was one of the key differences in the teams was, you know, McGregor's our main player for dictating the play that way. And for me, Rangers' main player for dictating that way has always been like James Tavernier and the fullbacks, particularly. The whole system that Rangers have is reliant on the fullbacks being high and getting those crosses in the box and things like that. That diagonal ball to Tavernier to break the lines and break the press. And the thing was that tactic actually worked quite a few times where they did break the press through the fullbacks. It was effective. at times, but the problem they had was Daiza and Maida was right on his arse every single time. Didn't give the guy a second. And that wasn't anything to do with ability. That was just sheer effort for that guy. Always getting back in. He was back in before Tavernier could even look up. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's your difference, right? Their main threats, the fullbacks, we had people, like Maida and Abada pressing them, getting right on their arse all the time. And then you've got a guy like McGregor who's got the freedom of the park to do whatever he wants. So their biggest threat was neutralised, and our biggest threat had as much space as they wanted to dictate the play. And for me, that has got to be a fault of the manager. You can't have. How can you not spot that sooner than that? But also, the players on the pitch, like, see regardless of what you think about like tactics and all like that. Right for the start, for when Ange came in, the players fought for him right away. And the thing that would consider me from a Rangers point of view is I didn't see much fight for the players. Like, you get Daiza and Maida just completely outworking most of the Rangers team, and that allowed us to neutralise their main threats. So their main guys getting pressed and our main guys just allowed to just do whatever he wants. For me, that's got to be a big concern for them, and it just was something that I wanted to mention because I'm looking at the game and I'm going, how can that be allowed to happen? How can you, be allowed to be a situation where you're not working as hard as that team? And that's something I've not really seen. I think Celtic were the better team in the first half, created more chances. But what I'm saying is the effort from a Rangers point of view has got to be a concern, because at the end of the day, we're going to IBROX as the champions, and building, this is he needs to win something. He needs to win, and the League Cup's not enough, in my opinion. He needs to win something, serious this season. And the main thing is, you can say it about trebles and League Cups and Scottish Cups and all that. See, at the end of the day, if you ask any Rangers fan or Celtic fan before the season starts, what do you want to win? Every single one of us say the league title. That is the main thing in a season domestically. If you offered me no cups but the league every season, I'm taking that every day of the week.
Oh, of course, we know that. We know that it's all about the league, and we love winning trebles, especially at Celtic. But if the league is the bare minimum, and if you win a cup double, it's still not a good season. There's no real big reward. There's no Champions League football. There's no prestige behind lifting the Viaplay Cup. There's a wee bit more prestige with the Scottish Cup, but you're right. I think even, would the Rangers fans be happy with Celtic winning the league at a canter and they win both cups? I don't think so, mate. I think that they want to challenge, they want to see progression, and I think this is one of the big problems that one of the big issues that I would have as a Rangers fan is that they're not progressing. They haven't progressed since 2020. So 2021, they've went backwards every season, and that is a big worry. And they've replaced a front three, Kent, Morelos and Fashion Sakala with a front three of Dessers. I mean, who started that game on Sunday? Dessers.
Lammers?
No, he came off the bench.
Did he?
I can't even remember who else was in the front
I don't
three.
think... Do you know something as well, just on their front three? I don't know why Danilo's not getting started in these games. Like, see, from the bits I've seen of them, Danilo seems like the standout forward for me. I don't know, Dessers seems to be getting the nod, right? But see, I think Danilo looks twice the player of Dessers, man. I don't understand what's going on there, because that Dessers guy just looks like he's not got any other, it's like, he just seems like a less effective Morelos.
He's a very different player, but they started with Kamara Roof, Rabbi Matondo and Dessers, right? So on that team for like last season, Matondo wasn't getting into that team. He was on the bench. So, and then Roof, you could probably say the same. I mean, I know that the guys had his problems last season with injury, and he did look like a decent player, and he's probably like the only player. And that front three that you would be like,
Mate, I think Ruth is a quality player. You can see that he's...
We'll talk about that in a wee second, but do you want to go into the VAR?
Aye, well, Ruth is actually a good point of switching the VAR situation, right? Obviously, Rangers had 2 goals disallowed. Not much point in talking about the first one. We know it was
clearly
a mile
offside.
But see this whole VAR controversy for this. It's just you mentioned a wee while back about you, Kevin's talking about like the kind of making that point about the centre halves and just sort of sensationalising it. And I think there's a lot of just people just saying, "Oh, it was never a foul" or this and that, just for the sake of like clicks and bait and being controversial, right? But the fact of the matter is, it's a foul, right? You know what I mean? Like, because you can say that it's late and all that, but as soon as you actually watch it, like at the end of the day, this is why we have VAR. See if you watch it open play and you don't have VAR, open play, you don't even think about it, it's a goal, right? Fair enough. But the reason why we have VAR is for stuff like this. If you watch it back and watch all the angles, here's the thing for me, and James McFadden said it very well in the analysis on Sky Sports. The fact of the matter is, Lagerbielke's under control of the ball. He messed about a bit with it, right? Fair enough. But he puts the ball on his left foot, so he turns to make sure he can put it on his left foot. And he's in complete control of the ball, right? Dessers comes in, makes contact with Lagerbielke, doesn't make contact with the ball. He falls over and then he wins the ball, right? What I'm saying is, you can clearly see that Lagerbielke's about to hit the ball away. He's about to pass the ball. And then as he's about to pass the ball, Dessers stops him from doing that. Right? So you can sit and argue about, football's changed and that was never a foul back in the day. Well, it's not back in the day, mate.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying. By the letter of the law, Lagerbielke has the ball, he's in control, he goes to play it back to Joe Hart. Dessers puts himself in between him and the ball without playing the ball, and then there's contact. Lagerbielke kicks him and goes down. So by the letter of the law, because Lagerbielke is in control of the ball, it is a foul.
The main thing,
you're saying, you could be like, well, 3-4 years ago that wouldn't be. And you're right. And whether or no we agree or disagree, funnily enough, on this specific point, Andy Halliday, Kenny Miller, Chris Boyd, Neil McCann all happen to disagree with this specific rule of the game, or because it led to a Rangers goal. It's like, he's not aware of your unconscious bias that goes through your head. Now, if I was to flip that coin, if that was a Celtic player, if Kyogo had done the same thing, nipped in, squared the ball in mid, I'd stuck the ball in the back of the net, get disallowed, I'd be spewing. I'd be gutted. I'd be angry. I'd be like, that's never a foul. But I think after you see the way that the play goes, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Aye, the guy's about to play the ball. Now, here's the funny bit for me. If Dessers goes down, I think it's a foul to Rangers. But they don't score the goal. And he didn't go down. So it's no advantage because the referee didn't see any foul on Dessers. But if he kicks him and Dessers goes down, I think he'll give a free kick to Rangers, but then they don't go break away and score a goal. So it's kind of a mute point. I think at the end of the day, when you look at the rules, and I've seen Bobby Madden on social media explain exactly why the goal was disallowed and why he agreed with the decision, you do have to just accept the fact that that is the rules now, and that is a disallowed goal. There's been many examples over the last couple of weeks where people have, over the last few days since the game, where people have screenshotted times where it's went in Rangers' favour, times in European football, times in international football. So this is just the rules of the game. And whether or no you want to sit there like Neil McCann did or Kenny Miller did and go, but I don't agree with that rule. Well, then why are you a football pundit? Because you just don't like football then? Because the game changes and it evolves. And if you want to go back 30, 40 years, you could get away with borderline GBH on players and it wasn't a foul. So that kind of feels ridiculous to me. And when you're sitting in a Sky Sports studio and you've got 3 people there deliberately, Chris Boyd for Rangers, Neil Lennon for Celtic, and then James McFadden, and 2 out of the 3 side with the referee's decision and the VAR decision, I think that kind of tells you everything that you need to know.
No, mate, you couldn't. Honestly, absolutely spot on, mate. Completely spot on. There is that sort of, like, at the end of the day, if it's the other way about, I'm fuming from a Celtic point of view, right? But, you know, like we say, football has evolved. It's not, the fact of the matter is, for the likes of McCann, Miller, Boyd, the game is not the same as it was when they were playing it. And you're watching this, and at the end of the day, what I like about it is it is consistent with what's happened so far in the past season or two. It's the same, you know, we have seen decisions like that go in Rangers' favour. We've seen it at Rugby Park last season, or where, you know, you're thinking, come on, I could get a penalty, but it goes the other way because of this exact rule that's in place.
Yeah.
So it has been held up to the letter of the law, and that, you know, at the end of the day, the biggest thing for me that I'll go back to is Dessers makes no contact with the ball. Right?
Zero. Absolutely zero contact.
So that is, for me, in this modern day game, the only way to judge a foul is ball contact, right? If he makes no contact with the ball and affects our defender from kicking the ball away, that is a foul because it stops him from. It's a physical instruction. It's a physical, you know, what's the word? Block or instruction of the player without making any contact with the ball. So, you know, like, whichever way you look at it, it's a foul, it's a free kick. And fair play to the referee, because it could have been, it was really easy for him to just give that there. And I think that took balls for him to be like, this is the right call for me.
I think so too. I mean, you were talking about earlier the environment, you know, IBROX, 50,000 Rangers fans, no Celtic fans. It did take balls to go up to that screen, and it could have went either way, and people are still debating it. So this idea that it's cut and dry, it wasn't a foul, or it's cut and dry, it was a foul, I don't think that's even true. Do you know what I mean? Because like I say, we're still debating it. There's been referees who've come out and sort of disagreed with the VAR decision, so it tells you a lot that that's the case, you know. I
think your point about it though is spot on the money, in the sense that if that's the other way about and it goes in Rangers' favour, Neil McCann and Kenny Miller and Chris Boyd are singing the praises of that decision. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not because they think it's the wrong decision, it's because of who it was against at the end of the day, and that is an unconscious bias, and I would feel the same way. But the referees are holding the letter of the law to account, and you can't really criticise that too much. If that's what they've been told at the start of the season, then fair play to them for doing that. And what other way you're meant to judge it? You're supposed to just bicker about this because Rangers lost the game 1-0?
That's it. That's exactly it. I mean, I also felt to move on for the VAR controversy. I think Celtic should have been, because, you know, you need to earn everything right, and you need to do everything right for things to come off you. But we could have been 3-0 up at half time. This is something that a lot of the commentary run about the situation, run about the game at finishing 1-0. People are having to be reminded that Kyogo had an absolute gilt-edged chance that he tried to flick. For whatever reason, I don't know, it comes off. He's a genius. He misses it. He looks like a dumpling. Also, did Maida have a good chance? Or no, Kyogo went clean through. Should have squared it to Maida. To be fair, Connor Goldson makes an absolute world-class tackle to save it figuring into the back of the net. So he kind of did his job as a striker. And also, when they take away that instinct of, you know, like, if you're going straight through on goal, please take your chance, like that type of thing. But I think Celtic could have been 3-0 up at half-time.
Definitely, mate. I think that people are, you know, you look at these chances, these are really serious gilt-edge goal-scoring opportunities. They're not like, if we'd made this right, you know, we could have been in, but they were right through on goal. Like, we cut them right open. Kyogo on another day side fools that in the bottom corner. You know what I mean? And then we were talking about the one where he should have squirted to me. That I think he did well, and it was going in the net, fair enough. But what I would say is, for me, he just took one too many touches. Just take a touch and smash that in the bottom corner.
One touch hit. But I mean, I don't think we can really, like I said, I wouldn't really want to dig into like what he did wrong, because it was an absolute incredible tackle for Goldson on the line. So don't know if he particularly did anything wrong, but he could have squared it. If he did square it, it's a tap in. So these things you always look at. But I was just before we talk about the goal itself, I was really encouraged by that first half of Celtic. We were talking last week about the way that Celtic have been playing, the way that the guys are struggling to adjust to the system. I still think that Greg Taylor didn't have a great game. I wasn't entirely convinced by David Turnbull in the middle of the park either. I felt that Leo Labada, when he was asked to come into the game, he did really well, but when he was off the ball, he wasn't particularly putting himself about that much. But I was really encouraged by the way that the team played. I think that the dedication, the effort can't be faulted. And Hatate, Carter Vickers come back into that team. Well, looking good. It's funny how things change over the course, but
a week is a long time in football.
Aye, 100%. Right.
And so the most encouraging thing for me is the fact that you could see the players are behind the manager, they're backing the manager, because the effort was what showed me that they're behind the manager, and then the tempo was higher.
Yep.
The players knew this was an important game, and they went out and played like that. So and there was a million excuses. We would have lost the game. If we lost the game, we could have went, well, you're missing the Hatate, Carter Vickers, and these this defence has played together, and there's multiple different excuses you could use for why Celtic would have lost that game. But the players didn't accept that. The players went out and worked for that win. And that has got to be, it's really encouraging. We played at a higher tempo. We cut them open at will at times in the first half. And that is really promising. Because at the end of the day, you can talk about the VAR thing all you want, but there's 60 minutes to play after that. There's a full game to play after that. And, we cut them open, they stay in the game. And I just think that even in the second half, they're obviously pushing, because you expect a response or some kind of response, and they're pushing.
Yeah.
But even in the second half, for me, Celtic still had the better clear-cut chances.
Yeah. I mean, before we go on to the second half, let's touch the goal. Let's talk about the goal. An absolute moment of world-class finishing for Kyogo. I mean, I was like, when I seen him shape up, I was like, keep going. And then as soon as it left his foot, I was like, this is getting in. Like, you could see the ball dipping. You could just sort of see it happening. Like, it was almost happened in slow motion. What a goal. What I found really weird was the silence. I was almost like, is it not a goal? Do you know, like, my head went to... And I think Kyogo and that did the same, sort of looked a bit like, does this count? And then the referee's like, it's, he was nowhere near offside as it turned out.
Yeah.
It was just so weird, like hearing nothing. You're like, what's happened here? But I mean, what a finish, what a player, like outstanding.
I'm going to say this right now, man. He is the best since Larsson.
I think so too, mate.
I take him over Edward and DeBelly and all that every day of the week. And the big, the thing for me that's really decided that is that Rogers plays a different style than Ange, and Kyogo's still been the main man. He's still delivering. There's been a whole change in system. He's asked to play this false 9 type thing, and he's still been the guy that makes a difference for us. And that, it takes a real level of quality to do that. I think that he was brought in by Ange, and Ange's system suited him a lot, but he still came in. He's taken in the adaptations that Rodgers made, and he's winning his games at IBROX. If that doesn't make you the best since Larsson, I don't know what does, mate. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't just that he tapped a ball in for 2 yards out. He hits a volley, leaning back for 20 yards out. You know what I mean? Like, that is ridiculous.
Aye, mate.
It's one of the best goals you're going to see at IBROX ever. Genuinely. How many times do you see a striker leaning back like that and the ball goes 20 yards over the bar?
The technique to get the dip on the ball, considering his body position, I don't know how he does it. I genuinely don't know, unless he catches it with his toe. Or so, I don't know how he gets the sort of top spin on that to get the ball to dip underneath Butland's glove, because it did dip right underneath his glove. I agree. Like, I was talking to somebody the other day, I was like, Dembele was a great striker, Edouard was a great footballer, and I think that Kyogo has the potential to be both. We've seen him be both a great striker and a great football player. So I genuinely agree with you, mate. I think he's the best since Larsson that we've seen at his club. And I hope we can hang on to him for as long as possible, you know.
Well, on that note, though, I think honestly, the best piece of business that we've done this summer is get him to sign a new long-term deal.
Yeah.
You know, and it shows you that this guy loves it here, because he could have left in the summer there. He could have left easily. But what happened, you know, he signed a new 4-year contract and he's 28. So he signed that new deal. I believe he signed that new deal, you know, believing that he's going to be here for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't look like a guy that has any interest in leaving here. He's more interested in legacy than he is about the Premier League and all that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I said that about Ange as well, so I could be wrong on that note.
Well, that's it. I mean, a lot of the time, you know, guys will sign contracts based off the fact that, you know, if we keep 4 years on your contract and somebody comes in for you, we're going to get the maximum amount of money for you. I remember Stagan Petrov signed a contract, we sold him 6 months later. So I don't know if signing contracts is really a signal, but I have heard I think I watched something on like Japanese media where he was like, I'm happy. It was such a shock and such a change coming from Japan to Scotland that he doesn't see himself leaving here anytime soon. So that, I think that's a good sign. But as we know in football, money talks, doesn't it?
And the thing is, though, mate, he's 28. What is he, 28, 29 years old? You know, we have him. Even if we have him for the next 2 years, we've got him in his prime years. Like, it doesn't get any better for Kyogo than right now. Do you know what I mean? He's not. And that is so, seeing the modern game for us, it's so rare to get that. Unbelievably rare to get a player of that quality in his prime, wanting to commit his prime to us. We're not getting them from like 22 to 25. We're getting them for 26, 27 to about 30, 31. And that is like, you know, in terms of your peak time as an athlete, as a striker, those years from 27 to 31, like, those are the years you're at your best.
Vitally important, absolutely.
So even if we were to sell him in the next 2 years, by then is it going to be 30, 31?
Yeah.
So, you know, to me, it's like, this is absolutely amazing and such a unbelievable rarity and for Celtic and where we're at in the market and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For this guy to still be here.
100%, mate.
And, you know, on the note of the goal, you know, a lot, like, we spoke about how McGregor, the differences between McGregor and Tavernier and how, you know, differences in the press and how Celtic were able to win the game overall, but a lot has been made of the differences of the team, differences of the two teams, right? For me, it's like we can't talk about the differences of the team and not talk about the differences in the forward quality, because everyone's talking about the lack of quality that the forwards of Rangers apparently seem to have that they brought in. That's the kind of discussion from the Rangers side of things. And then you look at our striker, 20 yards out, leaning back, scoring a goal like that. It's just like, that is a complete moment of brilliance for him. And the difference in quality up front is what won us the game, ultimately.
That's it. I think so too. Like, there was a battle, and there was a tussle at the sort of between, like, you know, in the first half and in the second half, between Rangers attacking players and our defence, which was seen as the weak link. I think our midfield, well, Cal McGregor in particular, dominated the middle of the park, but I think the difference, and this has been the case since we signed Kyogo, and since that second transfer window, the difference at IBROX was that front, like you said, Dyson Maida did not give James Tavernier a minute, and Kyogo, when, you know, he had 3 chances, he took one got cleared off the line, and one he tried a fancy and he should have done better with it, but he was a difference. That was the difference, that quality. And long may Rangers spend, you know, £4 or £5 million on people that are ineffective in these big games.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of a common thread. Like, so we've talked about how, you know, we've seen changes from Celtic from last week, and we're feeling positive about that from a Celtic kind of fan point of view. But, you know, and we've kind of analysed the game from start to finish and what we think about different parts of it. So let's kind of like end a wee bit on Rangers and where they go from here. There's been a lot of talk about Beale and his position, and because we haven't really mentioned the fact that before they played us, they got hammered away to PSV and get knocked out the Champions League. Not just knocked out, but I mean really like embarrassingly beaten away to them. And there's been a lot of talk about Beale. And I just want to take my Celtic hat off here for a second and be completely objective with this. They have gave this guy, what, a 3-year contract? He's got 3 years left in his deal.
Yep.
They have said, you know, for the Scottish Club to spend, you know, I know Beale's trying to say they spent 13 million, but based on what the media is saying, they spent upwards of that. So, you know, that's essentially all their money on this squad. They spent all the money on this squad. They backed this guy at the hill. Rangers fans were desperate for him to come in. They wanted Gio gone and Beale in, and the board did what the fans wanted. I just think that you cannot. I don't see a world where it makes any sense to sit that guy after 4 games. Like, it's like, I don't understand. I really don't get. I don't like. See, at the end of the day, yes, it was a poor performance, right? But you need to remember that they have got a totally different midfield and a totally different, you know, attacking front three, and that is going to take time, right? And it may not be quick enough for Rangers to win the league. But see, the fact of the matter is, Paul, right? Rangers can still win the league. The league is not lost.
Of course not.
You know what I mean?
Aye.
It's like, you know, but it's not a good start. It isn't a good start, right? But you can have a bad start and still win the league. And I think that this whole idea is, if they're going to win it this season, it's going to be with Beale and with this squad. The idea of sacking this guy, bringing in what I've, you know, like what, who, Derek McInnes? Do you know what I mean? Like, who are you going to bring? Who are you bringing in?
Yeah,
you know, and
there's already been names cutting about, you know, in the sphere of rumour. I agree with you. I think that it would be ludicrous for them to consider. I know that, you know, I've even heard, I'm pretty sure I'd seen Barry Ferguson saying on Go Radio that, you know, his job should be on the line. It's like, listen, we've got off to some terrible starts in leagues. I'll say there's more than a few, right? But 2007, 2008 was Stratton, the year that Tommy Burns passed away. We weren't even in the race until the last 11 games, right? Under Neil Lennon, the year that they went under, and we were playing Champions League football and stuff, like, we got off to a horrible start. We were 3-0 down at half time at Kilmarnock at Rugby Park at one point, and pulled it back to draw 3 each, right? So if taking our Celtic hat off, I would be saying to my Rangers supporting mates, you need to stick with him. You can't give a guy 15 million quid and then sack him. You can't ask him to build a team. He does that. He's just getting them together. Like, there's been 4 league games. He's had 4 different starting 11s. The guy doesn't know his best 11 yet. He needs time. Just the same as what I would have been saying about Rodgers. He needs time. You need time to settle into the job, settle in, get the squad settled, get the style of play settled, get the system settled. These things can't be done overnight. So I'm with you. I think it's absolute panic and a ludicrous sentiment to think that they could sack him and bring somebody else in and somehow they would compete. It's ridiculous.
I mean, it is. And for me, the main sort of thing about this is the fact that, you know, Beale, the fans wanted him. The reason why Michael Beale was the Rangers manager is because the fans wanted him, right? And that's a fact. You know what I mean? Like, they had people clamouring for this guy as if because Gerrard won the league and everyone thought that Beale was the mastermind behind it, right? And they brought him in. So this is the guy you wanted. The board have backed him. and basically, see, to be fair, the Rangers board, I keep hearing about like we need to change at the top and all that. They've backed the manager. They've backed the manager significantly with loads of players, millions of pounds spent. Like, I don't really know what more the Rangers fans are looking for here. What is it that's not been done that you think could have been done better? Because they brought in the manager they wanted, they brought in the players that the manager wanted, and they brought them all in quite early as well. So, you know, how you can do all that and then sack this guy, or even talk about sacking this guy, I don't know. And it kind of goes back to what Rangers' biggest problem has been the last few years, is this need for constant, instant success. Like, see when Ange Postecoglou came in, right? That his first season, I think that speaking for myself, I genuinely was like, I'm okay if we don't win the league this season. Because I'm looking at the fact that we've not signed anyone. We got Anthony Ralston right back, who had been non-existent in the team before then. And we got no depth whatsoever for that first 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we win the league this season, it would be absolutely outrageous. Do you know what I mean? And obviously I wanted us to win it, but I'm talking about, like, realistically, objectively as a football fan. You know, I'm willing to give this guy time, because he needs it. He needs the time. Like, you need to give a guy time. And I think a lot of Celtic fans, as much as we wanted to win the league, we could have honestly said to each other, like, I think I've mentally said the idea that we probably won't win the league. And the problem with Rangers fans, I think, are having is, like, they're doing everything season by season and not thinking, like, what about next season? Because then you sack this guy, then all of a sudden all the chat with the next guy is he needs time, he needs a season.
That's it.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's it.
Like,
they've got a merry-go-round, you know what I mean? And it's like you're saying, it's the expectation, it's the need for instant success, and it's just not going to happen. I don't think it's just not going to happen for them. They gave Gerrard 3 years to build a team that could challenge for a title, and I don't think that's an unrealistic sort of time frame for anybody. We got lucky. I'm doing air quotes, people can't see me. Lucky with Ange Postecoglou. That's no normal for a guy to come in and do that. It wasn't normal what he did. So they're hoping for moonbeams, and I don't think it's going to happen for them. They need to have more realistic expectations. They need to calm themselves down, and I think they definitely need to have more of a balanced sort of mental state so that they can have a team and a manager that has the time and the space to actually gel and actually maybe put something together.
Well, I think that Ange as well, I think, honestly, you've made a really good point there, because Ange's doom he did for Celtic that season was a miracle. It was a miracle. It was an anomaly in football. And the problem is, Rangers fans are looking at that thinking, well, if they can do that, why can't we do that? Do you know what I mean? And it's because we happened to find someone in Japan, this world-class manager that came over, and regardless of which, fair play to the Celtic board for finding them, but regardless of however you think about it or what you say about it, the fact of the matter is, there is an element of luck about that. Like, it was a big gamble and it paid off, right? But, that is a rare thing. And like you say, Gerrard had 3 seasons to get to the point where he had a team that could win the league title. And they scooshed it that season. Rodgers might be, who knows, mate? Rodgers might only be with us for a season or two, knowing the guy, right? If that is the case, are you not better with a new manager for Celtic coming in? Well, Beale's been there for 3 years, rather than having these both at the same point again. The only way for Rangers to compete is to have a long-term plan. Didn't he have, like, for me, the biggest mistake they made was sacking Gio. A guy comes in, gets into the Europa League final, wins the Scottish Cup, you know what I mean, and runs us relatively close, and they sack him, and you're like, see if a European final and a Scottish Cup doesn't buy you a season, do you know what I mean? Like, what are you playing at?
We'll need to wait and see what happens in November, like where we're at, whether or no Beale's still in a job, whether or no we'll need to wait and see how this plays out, whether or no they change their game plan, or whether or no they just go for the same thing and just sack the guy when it doesn't work out at first ask.
Well, if they don't change it from a Celtic point of view, it's good news. You know what I mean? That's at the end of the day, objectively speaking, they need to the mentality needs to change if they want to have success, and that's not me trying to wind anyone up or that. It's just the fact of the matter. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how everything plays out. I think he will get the season, and he should get the season. But then again, if we come back from this international break and Bill's in a situation now where he needs to go on a run. They need to go on a run.
Yep.
Because for all the because see, as much as I keep saying how we gave Irish time and it's okay if we didn't win the league, it also didn't help. It also helped the fact that after a bad start, he went on like a 20-game winning run. Do you know? So that's what needs to happen here, because ultimately you can be sentimental towards Ange and all that, but if we had came back after losing 3 out of 6, if we had continued to lose and draw games, Ange would have been sacked that season. You know what I mean? He would have. If we had ended up 15, 20 points behind them in the middle of the season, Ange is getting sacked, right? So Bill, you're the Rangers manager, and the only thing that matters when you're the Celtic Rangers, you can talk about style or play all you want, but the results are what matter, right? And he needs to get results. He needs to get points on the board as soon as possible. And they still have a shout because Celtic we're not at the free-flowing best that we've ever been. We played well at the weekend there, but there's obviously still issues at hand for us. And if Rangers can run us close, then it's going to be an interesting season. But that if is becoming a more and more of a bigger question, I feel like. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. I think we're feeling, from a Celtic point of view, more positive than we were last week, for sure.
Yep.
And there's a lot of good things to take from it. But I've really enjoyed being able to kind of sum up the game and talk about it. And I didn't actually get to watch it live because I was making my Power Shift football debut for Manchester United at the weekend, which was amazing. For those of you that may not know, in the wonderful sport of Power Shift football that I talk about a lot, I made a move in the English leagues to sign for Manchester United, who work with the actual club and foundation themselves, and they have the actual real strips and stuff like that, and they give it the number 9, and it's been very sort of like, it's been a very sort of surreal thing of like, I can't believe this is happening, you know what I mean? Made my full debut, and we beat Nottingham Forest 1-0, and a really kind of 6-pointer game for us, and I'm really enjoying the whole thing, and I just thought I'd mention that because it's been a really sort of like, I can't believe I'm playing for Manchester United type thing. Like, obviously you all know I'm a Celtic fan, but everybody knows how big Manchester United is. And I'll tell you a wee funny story. I want to tell you this wee funny story because it was actually it was strange how the whole thing came about. I got to the hotel and there's a guy outside smoking on his break, and he says to me, he goes, for whatever reason, he just says, how you doing as I'm walking in, like, what are you up to? Because he's just the only guy there, and I'm going to get a spare key or whatever. And the guy goes, and I say to him, I'm actually down to play Power Shift football, and he says, oh, what's that? And I go through the sport and stuff, and he goes, who did you play for? I just signed for Manchester United. And this guy's face genuinely lit up like he was away. It was kind of a surreal thing for me. He lifts up his shirt and shows me this big giant Manchester United tattoo on his shoulder.
Brilliant.
He's like a season ticket holder and all that. He's
superb.
Like, and he's genuinely like, he's like, are you kidding me on? I showed him the pictures and all that. He was like, that's like the real stripper there. Like, are you like the real Power Shift team from like, is that a real thing? And he's like, I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. And he's like, well, anyone that plays for any Manchester United team is a big deal to me. And I've never actually got to meet, like, your Manchester United, isn't it? It was pure, honestly, like, because sometimes you get people like that, they're just kind of, you're in a wheelchair and they're sort of being like kind of talking down at you a bit. But this guy, you could tell he was genuinely buzzing about it.
Yeah.
And it was so strange. He was like, he asked me for his number and if we could get a selfie and all that. And he's like, he's in this group chat with like all these Man United fans, and he asked me to send him the pictures with the tops and stuff, and I did, and he got a selfie with him, and he was just like the happiest guy ever. And I just thought, like, wow, it's I've in my whole time playing publishing football, I've never had that before in my life. I've never had a guy just be like so. I mean, the Manchester United fans are so passionate about it, man. It was like, I mean, I knew obviously it was a big deal and stuff, but the level of people from Manchester that have heard about this, that have been in touch with me and been like, you better go out there and win games and that. Like they take any team that they have associated with the actual club really seriously, and there's been a really enjoyable sort of pressure about that. That's been fun, and it's kind of crazy to sort of be part of that, and I hope that it's a good sign that maybe Celtic and Rangers can get involved in it in the future. But playing for Manchester United is just been a sort of surreal experience that it's kind of off topic what we're talking about, but I wanted to mention it just because it was a buzz, mate.
Amazing, love it.
But on that note, we'll be back next week with actually we're approaching 100, so I'm going to try and get a guest in, and we'll have a wee chat about the podcast as we approach the 100th episode, mate, which is wild, absolutely wild, and hope that we can put out some things kind of in the lead up to that about some favourite moments and things like that. We can talk about that as we lead up to the big 100 episode. But I really appreciate everyone's support, and we will be back with you soon.